Welcome back to MPP's Building Blocks, where today we're looking at creative finance in the big leagues and what we can learn from it. So just a quick recap around the creative financing elements if you've missed other videos. When we talk about OPM, it's other people's money. Now, using other people's money within your property business is going to become an absolute necessity, because let's face it, nobody's wealthy enough to do everything in their own money with cash. But as previously stated, that's why one of the many reasons we love property investment as a vehicle, because it is the only investment strategy that I'm aware of that you can go to the bank and say, look, I want you to give me 75% of the value of this investment, and I'll give you a mediocre at best really return on your money, and I'll take the rest of the upside, the benefit, the capital appreciation, the cash flow. So it's a massive, massive win. It makes property investment scalable. There are other ways of financing properties that are not mortgageable in the front end because maybe they're too distressed, they need a lot of work, and that's often called bridging finance. And it's basically, I think of it as very quick mortgages that they will give you, and it's a little bit more expensive, it's meant to be a little bit quicker, and they'll lend you it on, I was going to say crap holes, but properties that need a lot of work. Did we just say crap hole? I think we did. Anyway, then we're looking at development finance, and that's the finance that's available for you to really add a lot of value. Development finance lenders usually have a bottom line, which is they won't really get involved for a small amount of money. It might be 200,000, might be 300,000, but they'll need you to be spending a little bit of cash and adding some serious value to lend you that sort of money, but that's development finance. And then the truest form of OPM, if you will, other people's money, often called angel investing. And that's where basically it's private finance. I don't know, it's been created this angel investing over time, but private finance. So that's finding individuals with cash looking for a return on their cash, but not really wanting to do all the creativity that you're doing, or maybe they've got so much money that they're separating pots out and a part of their pot goes towards private financing opportunities for other people. It works pretty much the same way as a bank, but it's a bit more streamlined, where you put in a loan agreement with this private finance and you give them a return on their money in one of two ways. Usually first, a rolled up interest rate. So let's say we borrowed £100,000 over a 12-month period of time at say 10%, they're my terms, and you give them back £110,000 at the end of the year. Or again, my terms, 8% interest paid monthly. So you lend me £100,000 and I pay you an 8% over the annum, and I split that down into 12 monthly payments and give you the cash back. I can't do the maths off the top of my head, but that is, but it's going to come up there because they've done the calculations. Okay, so now we're going to get deep into understanding how the big boys structure the debt in their property investments, and then we can pick it apart and look at it in detail. Okay, so this is the way that the big boys use it now. Probably some of you know we are developing ourselves on a reasonable scale, but like 50 apartments this year in over 2 deals. That's where we currently are with the development pipeline. I think we delivered another 50 over the last couple of years. So we're starting to build up a bit of scale and looking sort of ahead of ourselves and looking at how the big boys are doing it. Okay, so we're going to pop up a graph, and it's going to be £50 million gross development value. Our lender, our development finance lender, known as senior debt with the big boys, they're going to say to us, look, we're happy to lend you. It's a really good area. We know you know what you're doing. You've got a great development backstory. You've delivered lots of projects. This is a great area, an area that we're happy to invest in. Your contractor that you're using is all tied up in knots, and the contractor, the good JCT, they've delivered good stuff. We're happy with your management team. We're happy to lend you 65% of the gross development value, which in this case will be 32.5 million quid. So there we go, 32.5 million pounds of borrowing on this 50 million pound GDV development. Now, When you're developing at this sort of scale, it's unlikely that you're developing with a enormous profit margin in. So for sort of ease of argument of our numbers here, we're going to assume a 16% profit margin, which would be circa 8 million or something like that. And with that, you'd be in for an £8 million deposit. Now, in large construction, that's called equity. So there's an assumption that you would have an £8 million equity in this £50 million GDV development, and that the senior debt, the development finance lender, would lend you 65% of that gross development value, which is 32.5 mil. So now on our bar graph, we should have 32.5 mil of senior debt and £8 million worth of equity. Makes sense. It's kind of, and then you've got a profit margin there, haven't you? If we just put an £8 million profit margin up there at the top. So this looks at the moment pretty similar to maybe buying a HMO development with development finance, putting in a deposit, lending the rest of the development finance money, and hoping that you're going to accomplish like a profit, an equity piece when you refinance. So very, very similar to that scenario, or doing that in a flip. Now this is where the big guys get really creative, and it's actually, it's not seen as sort of underhanded or lenders not wanting to know about it. It's absolutely just out there on the table. This is the way it works in big construction or big development. And the one thing that becomes to mind straight away is we all started this because we had a bit of money, or we needed a bit of money, and we want to invest that money smartly. But by the time you're playing in the big leagues, nobody's using their own money at all. So we've taken that 32.5 mil of senior debt there, and we're assuming that we've got the £8 million worth of equity. Now, this is where we have a bit of a problem, isn't it? Well, I don't have 8 million quid, but I've got this deal. I've managed to secure the senior debt there. I can line this whole thing up, but I don't have 8 million quid. And so there is a level that comes in here. Let's say, for instance, we've got 3. We've managed to get 3, but we haven't got 8. And there's such a thing called mezz finance, mezzanine finance. Mezzanine deck, like a sleeping deck. It's not a full floor, but it's kind of halfway there. And so it's a mezzanine finance level where you could come in, go to mezz finance lenders and say, look, we've got this senior debt through at 32.5 mil, but we need to bump up our equity with mezzanine finance at 5 million quid. And like anything else, they're going to lend you that money for a percentage return. Gets a little bit creative sometimes in the development world, because there'll be all sorts of creative lending strategies for equity, i.e. a percentage of the profit rather than just a fixed rate. So people will come in and joint venture the deal in different structures, but there is just such a thing as mezz finance, that they'll come in and they'll basically get involved with you at an equity level for a percentage return. That leaves us then in this deal structure, I believe, with 3 million quid that we need to find to deliver this whole £50 million gross development value development. Sounds great, but we still don't have 3 million quid. True, but who said it needed to be yours? OPM, other people's money? Could be done. Again, if we want to get really creative, we can joint venture. I often joint venture because we've got a full service power team here. We've got the contractors, we've got the PMs, the QSs. We manage, millions of pounds worth of construction. We're obviously very good at finding the deals as well. So often when we're bringing joint ventures in, they bring the money, we literally do the rest. There is that, but then there is all levels of different joint venture agreements or percentages of lending given. Mezzanine finance, other people's money, senior debt, all sort of debt layers all over the place. And you actually take a deep look and you think, if the big boys aren't using their own money for any of this, why should I? Okay, so I know that that's like a deep dive. He's talking about 50 million quid, but go back, just rewind the video and look at it again and make it applicable to you. There can be a little bit more red tape in the lower end of financing fundamentally, but you can get creative to scale your property portfolio, even if you're doing it over buy-to-lets. You just need to get creative and get to grips with the different types of financing that are available in the property industry. That was creative finance in the big leagues. Hopefully you did learn something that you can apply across to your property investment journey. If we added value today, and I really hope we did, please hit the subscribe button, tell all your mates about it, like it, share it, do all that good stuff, and we'll see you soon.